shit. That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
Welcome to BS, Beyond Stereotypes, a podcast about lawyers using their authentic voices to change the world.
You never know where this life is going to take you and what opportunities are going to present themselves. And I'm kind of the person that's open to hearing the idea, right? Like I've never been the type that's just closed off an opportunity because you don't ever know where it's going to land you. Even things that you don't necessarily deem as successes, when it's over, it gets you to a new place. It allows you to meet a new person. And I've always found that there's some glimmer of light no matter how it kind of actually turns out.
Welcome to BS, Beyond Stereotypes. I'm your host, Merle Vaughn. Here to BS with me today is Sierra Elizabeth. Sierra is fascinating, at least I think so, and I think you guys will think so as well. She is a lawyer, she is a business owner, and she's actually had a wine named after her, or at least with her picture on it. So, I mean, and that's only the beginning. So, welcome, Sierra. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Merle. And I love the title of your podcast.
Yeah, well, you know, everybody needs to BS a little bit every now and then, right?
I agree. Totally agree.
Okay, so here's the deal. The first thing I need to get out of the way, and I know you get tired of hearing about this and tired of talking about this, but if people Google you, they might find this. And I think it's relevant to our stereotypes conversation, so I'm going to start with it, is your parents. And I know that both your parents are entertainers. Your mom was actually in the movie Roots, and your father was one of the later Temptations. And so, I mean, that's fascinating in and of itself, but what I find fascinating about it is that you chose to be a lawyer. So can you talk to us about that choice? And, you know, were you kind of trying to get away from the stereotypical, you know, Hollywood family, or how did that happen?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. My family is very interesting. They are almost entirely in the entertainment business. So my mom was an actress turned director, editor, producer. My dad was a member of the Temptations as well as the Drifters, and I spent many days and nights as a kid at Berry Gordy's house, the founder and owner of Motown. My aunt is the executive producer of Blackish and Grownish and Mixedish, and I'm sure plenty more coming down the pike. So they always encouraged me to become an entertainer. So as a young girl, you know, I was in all of the talent shows, and I sang for commercials with Michael Jackson and many others, and that was kind of my life. But I hated it. I was so shy, which if you know me now, no one would ever believe.
No, exactly.
I got so nervous for everything, and I always felt like there was this huge personalities in my family that I did not live up to. And so, like many, you know, children growing up in a family where their parents are, for example, lawyers and doctors, and they want to be a musician or a model, I was the kid who was in the entertainment family and wanted to be something very conservative, but also that would allow me to get paid every 2 weeks, because my parents made, you know, $1 billion one year and $0 the next. So it was very kind of an up and down. So I kind of gravitated to, you know, the professions in which you can sit in an office and get a title and make some money. So that's kind of what led me to the direction of becoming an attorney. But I just, honestly, I really enjoyed it. You know, I was the kid in law school that loved every class and like studied the extra cases and did all that. So although kind of I chose it because it was trying to run away from something, I felt like I really found my calling. So that worked out well.
So, okay, and I would be remiss if I did not mention your credentials, and I should have started with that, but you know, we're BSing, so what difference does it make? So, I mean, you grew up in LA, you attended Michigan, which is an amazing school, undergrad. Yeah, and you were an All-American track star and a point guard on the basketball team. I mean, we have so many stereotypes we could like get beyond, right, just up until that point. And then you got in one of the best law schools, Duke Law School, went and got your JD, and did you also get
I also got a master's in psychology at the same time. You'll see, so Merle, there's going to be a theme, okay, with who is Sierra Elizabeth. I'm never kind of content doing just one thing. So as you noted, you know, in college, I was a double major, and I played 2 sports. And was an All-American. In law school, I couldn't just get my law degree. I had to get a master's degree. In my career at my law firm, not just a partner, but I also run my own business. So I don't quite do well with like limiting myself, which is sometimes good.
Because I think this is one of the things that's fascinating about you and your career and what you decided to do. And you just decided that it sounds like whatever you think you want to do, you're willing to try it.
Yeah.
No, and you're successful. You've been successful at it all.
Well, you know, going back to that part about being the shy kid, it really is true. I think, you know, I portray myself as an extrovert, but internally I do have a lot of traits that are more like an introvert. And I have this pivotal recollection in my life of being like 12 or 13 years old. I think I was about 13, and I was about to go to high school, and you know, I kind of just decided one day that being the shy kid was not really getting me to where I wanted to go, and I was just going to get out of my comfort zone in this new kind of stage in my life where people didn't really know me and I could kind of start fresh. And I just did it. And when I did that, it quote unquote worked. And that's kind of how I've looked at every kind of hurdle or problem going forward. It's not that I want to do it or I'm comfortable doing it. I'm comfortable trying and getting out of my comfort zone, and generally it works out okay. So I think that's kind of just been my way, and you know, it's ended up being pretty good.
Good. So to the point of our conversation here, and what stereotypes do you feel people make about you when they see you or they encounter you? And you know, have you thought about that and why? And you know, are any of them right or are they wrong?
Well, I think most of them are probably wrong. So I always get, you know, when people first see me, they don't think I'm a lawyer. I don't ever really know how to take that because they don't really express why they don't think I'm a lawyer. But I always get the, you know, oh, you're a lawyer? Or, you know, for clients, you're my lawyer?
Right.
But, you know, I think a lot of things can kind of go into that, at least from my educated guess, which would be, you know, I'm a young-looking African-American female. In my profession, there are just not many of us. You know, when I hopefully make share partner at my firm, you know, within the next year or so, I will be the first ever African-American female to do so that started at the firm. You know, we are still in the land of first, believe it or not. So, you know, it's not unexpected for people to look at me and not think that I necessarily belong. With that being said, I do think there's a stereotype, in my view, about Black women being, aggressive or strong or kind of, not taking any mess. And I do think that that's true about myself sometimes. So
Yeah.
I don't mind that one. I think I channel it in positive and productive ways. But I do carry some of those traits that I think are sometimes stereotypical.
I get that too. What I get is you're intimidating,
Mm-hmm.
And I used to feel that used to make me feel bad because who wants to be intimidating? I read something but now I just go with it, right? Because that's just who it is. But I read something the other day that said that you're not intimidating; they are intimidated. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And those are two very different things. But you still have, you're a partner at Kirkland, one of the biggest and most exclusive firms in the country, if not the world. And how have you been able to make your way through that very, conservative environment, but still be yourself? Because there is nothing conservative about you when one looks at you. Right? They're not. This is what I love. So how have you been? Are you just so damn smart that it doesn't matter?
Is it my long blonde hair or the nails that I paint with ice cream cones or something else you're referring to, Merle?
It could be all of the above, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that the way that I put it is, you should always be at a place in which you can feel comfortably yourself. With that being said, Kirkland is a business. Any other law firm or any other profession is a business. And so there are rules of professionalism, et cetera, that I think you need to be aware of and to some extent abide by. And the more credibility that you have and the longer you're there to show kind of your worth in areas that matter, you get a little bit more of a pass on all of the other things that are uniquely you that don't necessarily fit into that setting very well. So what I always tell people, kind of going into the setting is, for Black women, for example, hair is a big issue, right? And incoming associates ask me all the time, do I need to change my hair to become more conservative to start at this firm? And I very clearly say, listen, if you don't want to be at a place where you can't wear your hair naturally or the way that you want to do it, don't go to that place.
Right.
But with that being said, what I did was I thought this was a good place for me, for example, and I may have kind of gravitated to a more conservative look when I first started because no one knows, really whether I can do this job or how smart I am or how great of a trial lawyer I am. And once I was able to showcase those talents, I can wear my hair however I want because it's now my client and I'm winning and I'm making the firm money and all of that stuff. So, sometimes it's a little bit of a gradual process. I think oftentimes people want to let it all out all in the beginning, and I don't think that that's necessarily the right thing to do because, first impressions matter, right? So I think, there's a little bit of a hybrid there. But in terms of the intimidating kind of stereotype, I agree with you. I think most people are intimidated, and so you do have to take that into account. One of the strategies that I've always used, which is a little bit controversial, I don't know, whether other people do the same, but, I always kind of have a support, a cheerleader, a sponsor who does get away with, the positive stereotypes they're trustworthy, they're smart, they're capable, that I might not be able to get away with, and I use that person to vouch for me. So, before I go into a client pitch, for example, I'll call that ally. Generally, they're a white male, and I'll say, hey, put in a good word for me with X client because such and such, and you get to go to the golf tournaments and to the events that I'm not invited to. And so when I walk into that room, I still am the young black girl with blonde hair and ice cream cone nails, but I've gotten I've gotten kind of the stamp of approval in advance. So, I'm a little bit easier to swallow.
Yeah, and so I'm really glad you mentioned a sponsor because as you were talking, I was thinking about that you had to have had people who recognize, how smart you are and how capable you are. What did you do? Are there things that you did to figure out who the best people would be and to develop relationships with them? And the second part of that question is, as a black girl, how did you figure out to do that?
Well, first of all, there is no real handbook, and second of all, I think myself included, but a lot of people in my community struggle with that second piece because you don't have many people that you can look to that have done it before. And that was certainly me. I didn't have any lawyers in my family. I didn't have any lawyer friends even. So kind of getting into this, it was a lot of, developing a relationship, even starting in law school and before law school for people who had lawyers in their family or had gone to a law firm or could get me a recommendation because I didn't have that network kind of pre-built in. But in terms of, how I found the people that are right for me, I think this kind of dovetails with your question about being your authentic self. I mean, as a former athlete, I really, really love sports. And so instead of going into a room and trying to sound smart about a topic that I don't know about because I wasn't educated on it or because it's not something that my friends and I talk about, I talked about sports. And most of my kind of mentors and sponsors just happen to be people that like sports because guess what? We had that in common. We were able to develop a real relationship over, a commonality that helped us both with respect to kind of our mentoring relationship and our sponsoring relationship going forward because it wasn't just fake. It wasn't just, I'm at this networking event and I'm, making things up because I want you to really support me. It's like, no, I really have an interest in Sierra because I think she's great in other ways, right? So, I've always kind of approached networking and opportunities to be in front of your peers as ways to just really develop genuine relationships based on what I really like. I'm not a good, bluffer. I don't fake the funk very well. I kind of say what I mean and what I think, and I'm okay with being wrong or being called out and having a nice debate about it. So I think that's kind of how I've always approached it.
Cool. Very good. I think that's excellent advice. But again, it's not easy for everybody. So in a lot of respects, you're kind of a unicorn that you were able to figure that out and make it work for you. So just to switch from law, I was reading an article about your new venture. And one of the things you said about, developing your own fashion line and all that was that, you dealt with, kind of feeling like an imposter, like, kind of the imposter syndrome that I think we all have in these environments. But that kind of, it sounds like that was one of the things, again, your theme, if it is hard, try it, right? That caused you to embark on this new venture. So can you tell us what Soup Kits is, and then talk to us about why you started it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Soup Kits is an e-commerce platform that allows women to design their own custom suits online that fit their body, their job, and their style in 10 minutes or less. So it's been a really, really, really cool project that I started thinking about, since basically I became a lawyer, but really kind of put pen to paper in 2017, and we did our kind of e-commerce launch at the end of 2018. To your point, well, first of all, I started the business because being a lawyer myself and being a trial lawyer who has a particular need for suits, I thought that there was a need in the market and a gap in the market, and our survey research kind of bore that out. But also, kind of back to my point, I didn't know anything about starting a business or building a team. I didn't know anything about fashion generally, other than people say I dress well. I had never studied it. And so just like anything else I tackled, I kind of really dug in and tried to learn as much as I could. I developed a team of amazing people who are in the fashion industry or, in e-commerce, et cetera, that could guide and help me through the journey. Ultimately, one day I said, I'm never going to start this unless I make kind of that first step in getting out of my comfort zone. So I went on a legal Zoom and, I applied for an LLC, and however much it probably cost a couple $100 or something. It kind of just was the step that I needed to say, okay, I'm actually doing this, right? Because a lot of people have great ideas, and, they talk about executing all the time, but it actually never happens. And I even felt like, well, maybe somebody else will do it, or, maybe this is just a silly idea or whatever, and you start to talk yourself out of it unless you kind of take those steps to kind of really, make sure that you really can't turn back. And that's what I did.
Have a little skin in the game, huh?
That's right.
How does that work? I mean, I'm fascinated by it, and I think it's a brilliant idea. But you still have your day job, so how did the firm react to that? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it changes. The answer changes every day in terms of balancing the two. That is, that will take a whole podcast by itself to explain. The great part right now is, like I said, I do have a great team, and so I do not by any means manage the business on the day-to-day. I'm involved, obviously. I am the CEO, so I make all of the important decisions. But for the most part, the business can run without me, which is great. And that's what you have to have in order to have a full-time job, because as you know, I don't have just a full-time job. I have a full-time job where before Corona, I was on a plane every week. But with that being said, I think when you find things that you do that you love, it makes it that much easier, right? Like when I first started this journey, I don't think I really slept for about a year and a half. Like no joke. I mean, I worked every single day for a year and a half, and I probably averaged 4 hours of maybe 5 on a good week of sleep a night. And that's just what I had to do to be able to get it done. A lot of people don't have the stomach for that. And I get it. And I was quite burnt out after that, so I had to figure out ways to not make that my entire existence, right? But both with the law and with SuitKits, I love so many aspects of each that it takes away that grind feeling that often people have in their jobs or their careers, where you're just trying to put one foot in front of the other, and make it to the next paycheck. I really am enjoying what I'm doing, and so it takes kind of that work part out of it, and it's really about meeting your goals and creating amazing products and, having successes with your team. And that's what you really kind of look forward to and what keeps you going.
Where do you see yourself? I predict you'll make share partner soon.
I'll predict it too, girl. You're listening out here.
Yeah. So, I mean, so that's, that's in the stars, and then you've got this business. I mean, is there another business coming? I know that you also have done some commentating, some legal commentating. Is that something you'd like to get back to? I mean, it seems like to me the sky's the limit for Sierra Elizabeth, and I just think that it's really important for people to understand that they don't have to live their lives in fear or in boxes.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I appreciate that, Merle. I think the sky is the limit, really. Whatever. I don't think I'm. People say never say never. I've always had that mindset. You never know where this life is going to take you and what opportunities are going to present themselves. And I'm kind of the person that's open to hearing the idea, right? Like I've never been the type that's just closed off an opportunity, because you don't ever know where it's going to land you. Even things that you don't necessarily deem as successes, when it's over, it gets you to a new place. It allows you to meet a new person. And I've always found that there's some glimmer of light, no matter how it kind of actually turns out. So I totally agree. Now, one thing your listeners might be interested in is, how do you actually have a personal life when you do all this, which is the other part of the piece that I'm trying to figure out, right? Like, so, I just met the man that I hope is, my forever man and the man of my dreams. And that job, adding that to the mix makes things a little bit more difficult, because they require time, right? And I don't have much of it. So, any suggestions on that front, like for people like you who have very long, successful relationships, I'm open to hearing.
Well, okay, so my suggestion is to be open to letting each other be who they are, right? Don't try to make anybody be who you think they should be. And the other thing is, I mean, the wonderful thing about my husband and is that he is so supportive, and I think for somebody like you, that's what you need. I've always felt like my husband is my biggest cheerleader, and I'm his biggest cheerleader, and I think that's what it requires, that and flexibility.
Absolutely.
So hopefully that's something that you guys have, and even if you don't right now, it's something that you can strive to find and get. So okay, so back to that's one of Merle's pearls, but what role does diversity, inclusion, and equity play in how you walk through life?
I guess it doesn't have to be a huge part of everyone's existence who is a minority, but I would hope that it is. What I think of when I was considering what law firms to go to, for example, like the main question was, do you have any Black partners in your office? And the two firms that I whittled it down to, or actually the three firms, each had one. Now, it's not a lot, right? But the other has zero. So I know from a very personal perspective that, like, having the bodies and the numbers are important for many reasons, including for making other people who feel like they identify with that person feel welcome. So that's kind of number one, and it's always been a big kind of push on my end to get qualified minority candidates through the door, because we need them in order to kind of change the numbers that we're now seeing in the law firms. Still to this day, even with me 12 years later, our numbers are still the same or falling below what they were when I started. The inclusion part, I think, is where we're really starting to hopefully gain some traction. I know my firm in particular has implemented a lot of kind of ways like doing affinity groups that allow people of certain communities to really have support networks in ways that they never had before. I think, the numbers, having actual bodies there helps with that, right? But just kind of the outlook on like, yeah, people are here, but how do we help them succeed? I mean, one thing that I've always noticed, but was talking to other colleagues at other firms as well, is our Black young associates aren't getting as much work
Right.
as their counterparts. And so why is that? There's so many reasons for that, right? Like, but, part of not feeling included in a group makes it, less likely that you're going to come up to some stranger partner's office and say, hey, I need some work, right? Because you don't feel comfortable in that environment to begin with. So it has so many ramifications. And I know for me, that's something that I've really kind of tried to work hard on in these last couple of years. And I'm hoping it's working. I feel like we're kind of monitoring it, and people are giving us great feedback, so that's great. And one way we've kind of done that, I know from my personal experience, is we're becoming less reliant on like what your specific office, like Los Angeles or New York, can do, but what we can do as a firm as a whole. So we've been doing a lot of events where we're flying out, all of the Black partners and associates to one location so that they can gather, and it doesn't have to just be office specific, right? And so you're kind of developing those relationships. We're in an environment where we have, a global economy where our clients are all over the country. So why aren't we kind of getting our associates together all over the country, right? So yeah, no, I think it's very important, and as the statistics are clear. It doesn't just help, the people in my position, it helps the business. So I'm hoping we continue to get better.
Right. Cool. So, I mean, I think, I have I'm going to put you on the spot one last time. And can you do you have a little story or illustration you can give us about a time when you insisted on being uniquely you?
I have a fun story I guess I can share. I remember my first mock jury exercise. So we had a team of lawyers who were in front of a jury room, a fake jury room, right, trying to advocate for one side or another. And I had a very small role, but I was looking at everybody going in front of me, and they were, very conservative lawyers who stood at their podiums and, spoke in like monotone voices and, never moved. And I got up and tried to imitate that because as a young lawyer, I was like, well, I guess this is how big lawyers and law firms do it, right? And I felt like it fell like completely flat. Like I was just like, this is not me. I don't think this worked. And it went fine. Everybody said I did a great job. But I remember the next jury exercise I went into, and I was like, you know what? Like, I don't think that last presentation worked for me. I'm just going to be myself, which included like walking around and flailing and, making kind of some jokes every once in a while. I think I even did like a scream as a part of one of my presentations. And I got like the best ever response from like the jury feedback. And like my numbers were triple what all of the partners' numbers were on their presentations. And it just was like, confirmation for me that like, I can't be somebody else. Like people are going to see that as like not authentic and not credible. And I can do it and I'll do well enough, but like being me is actually what's like the value add, and I can never kind of put that on the back burner. So that was like a good lesson for me in real kind of data. And of course, my colleagues' faces when I did my revised presentation was a little bit shocked. No one can fight the numbers. Like the numbers said what they said, and the jury loved me. So, what are they going to say at the end of it, right?
Numbers don't lie. And I think that is a perfect illustration for this podcast, and you know, I knew that you would have something fascinating to share, and I had no doubt that it would be inspirational to our audience. And I think, you know, we'll end there. I just want to say thank you to you, Sierra, for being here to BS with me today. And hopefully you'll come back again.
I would love to. Thank you so much, Merle.
Yes, and thanks to everybody for listening. Take care.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
We hope you enjoyed the stories shared in today's episode of BS, Beyond Stereotypes. Join us next time when another authentic personality unleashes their uniqueness on the world.